Alright, Will from UTV Outlaws here. Got our video we're shooting today. See what we got old Tim doing in here.
What are you doing?
What do you got going on here?
Just trying to record with this old camera.
Oh man, look at that thing.
Hey, let me zoom in.
What is that?
Oh man, new Sony 4K?
Yep.
Where'd you get that thing?
Just trying to do bigger and better things here at UTV Outlaws, so got ourselves a little upgrade.
You're interrupting my video.
Oh, is that what's going on?
Yeah, I'll just shut this one off. You got that new one. We'll just shoot.
There you go. So, yeah, we're going to retire this old dinosaur thing. Worked perfect, but probably 8 years old, 10 years old, whatever.
Time for bigger and better things.
There you go. So, what are we doing today, Tim?
We are doing a carrier bearing from Driveline Services.
Okay.
And we're going to show you how to take the drive shaft out. And, yeah. Alright, so let's see what we got here. Two-piece billet mount carrier bearing. It's got rubber bushings so you don't feel vibration through your frame and everything. There's other companies out there that have them, and I've looked into them, but they don't all have rubber between, so you're going to feel more vibration. I don't have any problems right now, but I don't want to have any, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull my stock one out and put this in there, and I'm going to have the drive shaft balanced and make sure it's phased right. I don't have any problems with it, but I'm just going to go ahead and have the guy here local check it. And other than that, we have had this same bearing on Will's two-seater for 3 years now. Maintenance free, trouble free, have had no problems. And so after, you know, going out and looking at everyone else's, I just decided to run with the same one he's got. And yeah, so we're going to start taking this apart.
Let me take a look at it. It's kind of glaring. So yeah, she's a nice unit. Alright, go ahead.
Alright, so I got the drive shaft lined up so I can get the roll pin out. And I'm just going to try to come through here and get right on this roll pin. I'm using vice grips to hold it. Can't tell. I think it turned just a little bit on me.
Did it?
Move these vice grips down a little bit. Is it still in there?
Yeah.
Still?
Still. Good. She's going. Keep going. There you go.
Alright, so let's see.
She's moving.
Yeah, I'm just at a bind now, I think. Let's see.
Need me to rotate the tire a little bit more? There you go.
Alright. Now you can rotate. Let me see if I can do it. Yeah, I can't do it from here. You'll have to rotate the tire for me.
Okay. Here we go.
Alright.
So we tried rotating it, and then we ended up coming right back to the same spot again, so.
So, and I didn't really smash the end. The end was already smashed from the factory. But there's the pin. I'm pretty sure I got another one. We'll just put a new one in it.
Let me see what you got for tools that you used for that.
So I just use a brass hammer, which you can use whatever you want, but there's a brass hammer, a nice punch, and I just grabbed the punch. with the vice grips, and you know that allows you to hold
Get
it.
that angle in there.
You got to go underneath the control arm. Now I got aftermarket control arms to where I think they're a little bit lower right here. They bend down a little bit, so stock controllers might be a little bit easier. All right, so four-seater, I had to remove the front and rear seats. I went ahead and removed the tunnel in the front and the rear. Right through there where those wires are is where you'll send an extension with a swivel socket to get the 2 bolts that hold the carrier bearing on. Then the roll pin, you remove the roll pin, and I sprayed it with some PB Blaster, and I just took and wiggled it and pulled, and it slowly started coming off. Gonna have to, there's 4, I believe 6mm Allens on the rear yoke where it connects to the transmission. I'm gonna pull those next. There's a lot with the stock carrier bearing. People are having problems where the bearing's failing, and then they think they can just throw a new bearing on there and it'll be good. Well, they put a new bearing on there, or a solid mount bearing, then they have vibration, and they're like, well, where did this come from? Well, either some of it's to do with not having rubber between the bearing and the frame, like this one has, which is a good thing, or when the bearing goes bad, when we pull it out, we'll show you what we're talking about. There's a metal cage around it, and the drive shaft goes, when the bearing goes bad, it just slops around in there, and any little ding or dent can throw your drive shaft off balance, and you might not see it or you might not notice it, or it could just be not phased from factory, and then when you put a solid mount bearing on there, you'll feel all that. And so that's why I'm going to go ahead and I don't have problems right now, but I'm going to go ahead and change it so I don't ever have to have problems. I don't want to buy a drive shaft, but I'm going to go ahead and have this one balanced and make sure it's phased right, and then we'll put it back in. I got a local guy here that's really good, and Driveline Services also builds drive shafts for...
Yeah, I've heard good things about their drive shafts.
They do a lot of crazy stuff over there. They build Jeeps, but the 2-piece bearing has been nice and reliable for 3 years on the other machines, so I have no problem. That's why we can give you a review right now on that part, because we've already had it on the 2-seater. 2-seater's big turbo, stage 6 Evo, so it's pushing some power and it's handled it, no problems. They pack the bearing full of grease when you first get it, and after that you don't grease it, just leave it alone. It's a sealed bearing, and the guy has said he's got his guys out there bombing the mud and doing all kinds of crazy, just going wild on the bearing and running liquid sand through it, mud and mud holes, and they're getting like 5,000 miles out of bearing. Now these are rebuildable, so when the bearing goes bad, you just unbolt it, slide the shaft out, and there you go. Where with the stock one, it's a big pain because how big it is. It splits apart. It's a 2-piece bearing carrier, and makes things a lot easier.
It also makes it easier too for installing.
And I do believe it's like a mid-grade bearing. They're probably pretty reasonable to buy. Obviously, I've never bought one. We haven't had to change one, but bearings like that are typically pretty cheap. So to get a bearing and to change it and to make your life so much easier, I really think this is a good way to go on it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these 4 6mm out of the rear drive shaft, and maybe get the 2 bolts in the tunnel. There's a drive shaft skid plate that protects the gas tank, to where if your drive shaft does let go, it doesn't cut open your gas tank. Might have to take that out. I'm not 100% sure yet, but we'll find out. All right, so I got an Allen wrench here, and
from the top, Tim.
What?
From the top.
Did you restart this?
Oh yeah.
Dude,
quit your cussing.
I'm doing it on purpose, so you have to restart it. Cancel it.
There, it's canceled.
You're lying.
From the top.
Alright, so I got an Allen wrench on here. It's in park, and I'm going to just hold it here and try to knock it loose. And then you'll have to take and get out, put it in neutral, rotate it till you can get to the next bolt. So that one's loose. Well, I guess I can go ahead and get 2 right here.
This is a little easier, so you don't have to get up and down if you got a person with you. So we'll show everything after.
Alright, so I got drive shaft disconnected. Took a little bit. There's thread lock on the bolts, which is a good thing. But to get the shaft out, you got to pull the outer clutch cover here. So that's what I'm starting to do here. See if I can get those lights set up here. Alright, so I had to pull the outer clutch cover to get it out of the way. And you can just slide her on out. You can tell I've been greasing the heck out of it. Try to get it like every 2 trips grease.
Alright, so after pulling the drive shaft out of the back, we still got the front of the drive shaft in there. So this is what he's got.
Got a extension and a swivel socket. I believe it's 15. It's just really tight.
So obviously when we put this new unit in, we won't have to go through as much of this stuff. Everything will be, because of the 2-piece design, everything will be a lot simpler.
I think it's on there. Okay, so that one's out. This one's got a coolant line here, so it might be a little more tricky. Yeah, coolant line making her a little tight. So I ended up getting a swivel extension in a shallow socket and was able to get in between the coolant line a little bit better.
Yeah, a little tighter on this side.
Yeah, it's and from what I see, the 2-seater was easier. It's up there in that big wide open area by the shifter, compared to the 4-seater is way back here. So in a 2-seater, you do have a lot more room than in a 4-seater. And I guess it is what it is, but it's loose. Should be able to pop the rubber or the steel housing off with the rubber, and then the front shaft should slide off as well. So let me go check that out. All right, so I got everything loose. This protection plate is a little bit of a pain on a 4-seater. On a 4-seater, it's got a bolt holding the coolant lines. You take that off, and then right here is another bolt that hooks to this piece, and then you can completely get this thing out of your way, along with all the other dirt that's in there. And now I should be able to get the metal off of the drive shaft, the hoop, and then pull the drive shaft out of here as well. So we'll see how that goes. But other than that, try to make sure you remember to keep that yoke greased, and it should last a long time. Alright, so both pieces of shaft are out. As I was trying to show you down there, it's a little complicated. There isn't a whole lot of room to hold a camera, but there's the 2 bolts you come in from the top and get the carrier bearing. That's those 2 bolts that also holds part of the shield. And then, I don't know if it's the same way on 2-seater, but there is that one bracket that you have to pull a 10mm bolt out of that holds the coolant lines to the side of the carrier bearing. You take that up, and then at the far end near the motor, there is one 10mm you take out, and then that shield comes out like I showed you. And then once you get that out of the way, then you can slide this piece This is the backside where the yoke is, and this is just from me pumping grease in it for the last 2 years. But this just slides right off of this piece here. It literally, just a couple little twists and maneuvers, and it came right off like it's supposed to. So that's that. And then I'm just going to clean this drive shaft up so that it can get thrown in the truck and go to the drive shaft guy. Everyone likes clean stuff.
Yeah, we're just going to have him check this, make sure it balances out okay. With mine, he wanted to rephase it too, so we'll have him check this one out, see if he wants to rephase this one as well, and then we'll be ready for reassembly. Alright, we're back another day here. We're assembling a jaw puller right now. Probably just going to do a 2-jaw puller. We got to pull this bearing off, so it's obviously a different day. We had everything rephased on these drive shafts. We'll go over that here in just a minute. But we're trying to get this bearing pulled off right now. Alright, we transition here to 3-jaw pull.
Wow!
Oh man, Swiss cheese.
At least we're to the bearing.
Alright, so we got the shield. We just cut that off of there after pulling on it a couple times. So we're going to see if we can get it here. There we go. Alright, so when we were talking to you guys about phasing, this is what we mean. So this U-joint here is directly in line with this U-joint down here, which is in line with this U-joint down here. So everything is in line with each other. That way as it's rotating, you don't have vibrations from the drive shaft. And afterwards, our local guy here went ahead and balanced everything. So
yeah, so you ended up cutting this end off, this spline off here.
Yep.
And ended up cutting
that one down here.
This one right here, because both shafts were not lined up.
Yeah, and then rotating it and re-welding it.
Yeah, rotated it, balanced, re-welded.
And both sides needed to be redone, so.
Yeah. Alright, so I pulled the 2 bolts out of the bottom here. And this bolts back together like that. Then you take and you put some thread lock on here. Never get that one back off.
Oh, you went red?
Yeah. Okay, so
we were looking at pulling that bearing, but might as well just put the whole thing on there all at once.
can you grab that?
Yep. Obviously down here we just got it turned sideways.
I think it's still got to go down a little bit more.
A little bit more. So you guys get an idea of what we're doing here. So
You have to find something that fits right on top of the race. You can only press from the center of the bearing. If you hit the outside, you'll damage it.
alright, so we finished everything up. Just slid a little bit more than when we turned the camera off earlier. So if you look down in there, everything's nice and tight. So rather than pulling the bearing out of this thing and sliding just the bearing and reassembling everything, we just left it whole. And so yeah, we'll be working on the shield that's in there next and reassembling everything.
Alright, so it's in. Mount goes on the bottom and the rubber pushes around the threaded nut that's welded there, and you put the shaft or the skid plate on top with the washers between, and you run at these 6mm or 8mm Allen bolts. I'm not even looking at it, but here we go. Down to where they're tight, and then you put a nut and a washer on the bottom side. This one still has rubber, so it still moves and flexes like it should. But the skid plate was a real pain and the heater hoses and all the different coolant lines. But I ended up using a Snap-on 13 with a 8mm Allen with this 3/8 13mm ratchet wrench adapter, so I could put a socket on it, and it allowed me to get in there pretty good. But we're about ready to put the shafts back in, so we'll have that coming up. Jeremy, can you hold that so don't move? Yep.
It's going. Going. Hit it again. A couple more times, you got it.
Turn it downwards, Jeremy.
Just a little bit.
Other way. Keep
Right
going,
there.
Right there. Oh, your back just a little. Right there. Need to adjust this here.
Got about 1/8 of an inch more to go. A little bit more. Probably 1 or 2 more hits. There you go. One more. And you got it. I'd say that's good. You can see it's flush.
It's thread locked.
Thread locked and flush.
And tight.
Alright, so, and you know, out on the trail, it'll be pretty easy to change this bearing if you had to, because now instead of fighting the shield or taking this lower bracket off, you don't have to do none of that now. All you have to do is pull your clutch cover or your 2 motor mount bolts and either lift the motor mounts up or pull the clutch cover off, and by undoing these 2 bolts, the 4 bolts on your rear diff where the drive shaft bolts up and your 1 roll pin up front, all you really need is a new bearing and some thread lock, and you could change this thing really easy, because once I got this part in, the rest of it was real simple. I mean, but this was kind of a pain because of getting to the bolts. Now, I don't know if a 2-seater's easier because the shift area of the center console is where you're able to access this, but with mine, I'm in the back and I only got these 2 little holes to work with, so it's kind of a pain. But from this point on, I mean, all you got to do is pull your roll pin, pull these 2 bolts here, and the 4 at the back, and the whole thing will just slide out. So you could take this front section out right here, and then the back section comes out back by the clutch, and I like it. I'm pretty happy with it, and I can see from now on, if I ever have any problems with it, that it'll be simple to take care of, and it's pretty much maintenance free.
I think everything's 6mm as well, right?
No, the big bolt, well, yeah, all this is 6mm.
Yeah, so if you wanted to pull, you just got to have a 6mm.
Yeah, and I think the rear is even 6mm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all you got to have is that. But we've got 3 years of hard riding on Will's 2-seater that's with a big turbo on this same carrier bearing without any problems. So we can give an honest review at this point on it because we've already had it for 3 years, and I would do it again. So there you have it. I just got to put these 2 bolts in. I got thread lock on them. I can't see if I'm lined up or not. Yeah, go ahead. Old Milwaukee's pretty faithful. Good for a torque wrench.
If not, you'll just send it in for...
Yeah, send it in for warranty.
There you go.
Alright, so I got the last 4 bolts in. They're thread locked, tightened down. All the other bolts are tightened down and in. Everything's done except for I still have my skid plate off and my clutch cover off, but I'm going to do some maintenance, so it doesn't need to go back on right now. But if you come over here, I'll show you a little trick I did. punch and a pair of vice grips and a hammer to knock that roll pin out and back in. You don't have to worry about hitting your hands doing this, and you don't have a lot of room to hold your hand, put your hand up in there and hit. So the vice grips worked out real nice. But I think that's it for this video. We'll have another one coming up shortly. Make sure you go and like, share, and subscribe. And you gotta keep messing with me. You see this dude over here?
No, I can't see
We're
him.
trying to do an outro and he's messing things up. But anyways, make sure you guys go subscribe and like our stuff on YouTube and on Facebook if you can. It helps us out, and we'll have another video for you shortly. Thanks. Shoot a little video on it. In Michigan, you got to have a flag on the front, so I wanted a good strong mount up here. I had another mount, but I wanted a bumper too, kind of just to protect the nose, you know, if I nosedive or anything.